To today's webinar. This is Fiona Pratt with Applied Software. Glad you all could join us. Today our webinar is the future of making things in design. What's new in Autodesk Building Design Suite 2016. This webinar is brought to you by Live Lab Learning, which is a subsidiary of Academic Corporation, a wholly owned applied software company created to provide world-class training. As I mentioned, I'm Fiona Pratt. I'm a strategic account manager with Applied Software. My background is the architecture industry. Throughout our presentation, we'll encourage you to interact. You'll see a question pane. If you type in your question, we will be getting to them at the end of the presentation. We are going to put our presentation in two parts, one part AutoCAD and one part Revit. So based on the questions, we may cover, those questions particularly to that application. The webinar is being recorded and they'll be available to you on Live Lab Learning YouTube channel, and we'll display that information later in the presentation. We've got some other upcoming events, and we'll make that available to you too. So now I'm going to let Mike Massey begin our presentation. Mike, you can introduce yourself, and I just remind people, if we have questions orally at the end of the session, please unmute yourself when you go to talk. And Mike, if you would like to begin.
Okay, thank you very much, Fiona. Welcome everybody to our presentation today, Future of Making Things in Design. As Fiona's described, I'm going to divide this up into two sections. The first part, I'm going to talk about what's new in AutoCAD, and then we'll move into the Revit, what's new in Revit as well. But just a little bit about me before we get going, so you can put a picture with the voice, a face with a voice. There's a picture of me and just a little bit about my background. I've got about over 20 years experience in the AEC industry. 15 of that's working as an architect, in the last 10 years working with implementing new technology in Autodesk software with different resellers. So that's a little bit about me. We'll go ahead and jump right into it and get started here. So this is like Christmas. It seems like every spring when a new version of AutoCAD comes out, I remember how excited I would get. You couldn't wait to see the new features. And this is a good release. I think it's got some pretty cool features in it. But just looking at the timeline here in the previous years, as far as some new tools that have come up, if you're not on the latest release, you can kind of take a quick peek here to see what's been added in the last several releases. But as far as 2016, their focus was on faster, more accurate tools, and so they kind of looked at the tools that were out there and the ones that they were working on developing, and they really focused on trying to enhance the speed of our production out there as we're drawing and trying to make things a little bit more accurate for us. And so let's just dive right into it. As far as the first, I'm going to kind of divide this into different sections, and this first part is going to talk about some enhancements that they've made to the installation and configuration. And the first one has to do with our graphics, how we visualize things on the screen. They've really worked in the last couple of years, and this year especially, on making the graphics a lot more crisper. As you see the things on your screen there. If you can kind of see the picture there, back in 2014, if we had an image on our screen that had circles or curved lines in there, it's really segmented. Last year they tried to make that a little bit better. You can see that they've improved the segmentation. It's not as segmented as it was, but this year it's really crisp. And so if you've got a good video card in your computer, you should be able to see these crisp curved lines like this and not have any segmentation in your curves at all. And as far as the performance too, it makes it faster too. They've improved the speed of it as well. So that's one as far as the installation and configuration. Some other things that they've added, first of all, the system variable monitor. I love this. How many times have you been working in your AutoCAD program and something's gotten changed. One of your system variables somehow changed, no matter what it was. It's like gremlins come in there and change our variables sometimes, and it just doesn't work the way it used to work. Now we have a monitor in there to kind of monitor our variables. So if we've got key ones that we want, like the file dialog box or the mirror text or the CMD dialog box, you know, those ones and zeros settings that they somehow get changed, it's going to alert you if any of these change. And so you can set what you want in there, and then it will alert you if they change and tell you what's changed, so you can go back and put it the way it was. Another key feature is security. You know, as we live in this age, it's sad that we have to do this, but there are people out there that's writing virus programs all over the place, and you know, our software is getting more, I guess, in touch with the internet as far as how we download different drawing files and different things like that. Now we've got a security options inside the program that will allow us to only bring in things from trusted locations, and so that's going to help on the virus problems there. And then finally, the single service pack. As the service packs come out to improve the product, a lot of times they come out in different stages. So if you have plain Jane AutoCAD, that's one service pack. But if you have a program like AutoCAD Architecture or Civil 3D or AutoCAD MEP, you know, those have in the past have always been separate service packs. Now they're going to go to a single service pack model, where you can install, you know, it's the same service pack, whether it's AutoCAD or you know, AutoCAD Architecture or Civil 3D. It's just a single service pack, so you don't have to wait for that vertical product to get a service pack. You can install it as soon as the AutoCAD service pack comes out. So I think that's going to help us all. Moving on and looking at some other key features that we have in here. As far as the user interface, they have made some changes to the user interface a little bit. Last year, you know, we had some changes in there, and it's kind of made everything kind of black in there. This year, they've kind of made it a little bit, enhanced it a little bit more. The first thing is it's just a little bit on the file tabs there. The first picture up there on the top left, you can see it says the word Start. You know, now we can always go back to that Start menu, so we can go back to that place that it starts in, and that tab's going to be there that we can go back and go back to that screen. Our layout tabs, this has always been a beef with me as far as when I start creating layout tabs at the bottom. Depending on how many I have created, sometimes they would kind of disappear down there, or I'd have a tab with a dot that I would have to pick on and then scroll over and find the tabs if I had too many listed down there. Now we got the ability to place those tabs and dock them either above the status bar or in line with the status bar. That way they're not going to disappear on us as it hits the status bar over there. Another key feature is the ribbon. Last year, a couple years ago, they introduced and changed the ribbon a little bit. So when we picked a drop down on the ribbon, we would be able to see pictures of the blocks that we wanted to insert in an actual image. Now they've given us the option to either show the images like it has in the past couple of releases, or change it to just words. And so if you don't want to see the images, you have now the ability to kind of change that back and forth from pictures to images in there. So again, nothing major as far as the user interface, but just little tweaks, I think, to enhance it, to make it a little bit better, to continuing to improve that interface that we work in. As far as documentation enhancements, some key documentation tools that they've worked on. I love this one. This one's called Smart Dimensioning. Dimensioning, you know, it's a crucial part of what we do. We have to put dimensions on what we're drawing in there, and it's very time consuming a lot of times to put dimensions in there. Now they got that changed the way the dimension tool works, and it's going to drastically speed up the process of putting these in there. So now, in the previous years, we would placing a dimension, we'd have to pick a from point and a to point and then place the dimension. So really, it's like 3 clicks for every dimension you're putting in there. Now with this smart dimension, you just pick on the line that you want to dimension, and first of all, what you'll see is a dimension that pops up on your screen as soon as you pick on something. It's just a temporary dimension, but if you want that temporary dimension to stay, just use your mouse and pick, and it will place that temporary dimension wherever you pick. So it's going to drastically speed it up, but you can also have these temporary dimensions pop up to let you know how long something is without actually putting a dimension in there. So that's going to, I use the measure command a lot inside of AutoCAD. This is going to kind of eliminate the need for measure in a lot of cases, that you can now just hover over a line and it will show you the dimension of whatever it is. And by the way, I do have AutoCAD open in the background. When I get done with this, I'll jump over and show you a couple of these key features. I'm going to wait till the end to do that, though, but this is one of the ones I'll show you. PDFs, they're continuing to improve the ability to write to PDFs and make PDFs, and also bringing PDFs back into the AutoCAD environment. So now, as far as making PDFs, one of the things is the text inside of our drawings will now be searchable. And so we can create a PDF and then go to the PDF reader and actually search for text, and it's going to find that text inside of our drawings. And so searchable text. Also, if we have hyperlinks in our drawings, those hyperlinks will now carry over into the PDF environment as well. So again, continuing to improve that process of making PDFs. Also, it's not listed here, but you can also batch run PDFs now. Just like you can do a batch plot, now we can do a batch PDF to send a whole set of documents out to PDF format in a batch routine. Just some additional documentation enhancements. I'm not going to go cover all these. I'm going to just kind of touch on some of the main ones. Revision clouds, they've changed the revision cloud tool to allow us to draw either a rectangle, polygon, or a freehand cloud in there. So if you're just wanting a rectangle cloud around something, you can pretty much achieve that now with 2 clicks, and so you don't have to draw the little bubbles and pick every point where you want the bubble to be. You can use the rectangular option in 2 clicks, just draw your rectangular cloud in there. So that's pretty nice. As far as the next one I'll talk about is the geometric center object snap. This is a snap that has been needed for a long time. For a while, we could do what's called O-tracking or ortho-tracking to find a center of an object, whether it's a square or something like that, or a rectangle. We'd have to come off the midpoints to find that center snap of whatever it is. Now we have this new snap called geometric center. Well, it will find the center of the geometrical shape that we're pointing to. So you can see the pictures at the bottom down there as far as the triangle and the 2 little polylines that I've got there. It's finding the center of that shape that we have down there. Another big tool is this, I guess in here is the selection highlighting color. What this is going to do is allow us to change our highlighting color. So if we want to change it from blue to red to green, whatever we want to make it, we can change that highlight color to make it any color we want to now, and you customize that. As far as the plot dialog box, this has always been another beef with me is as far as working in when we go to plot. I would always have to expand out and show additional settings in there to show the right half over there, to show the pin settings and things like that. Now by default, it's going to show those additional settings when you go into it, so you don't have to expand it. I think you still can collapse it if you don't want to see it all, but by default, it's going to show all the settings in there. Moving into some design enhancements that they've made inside the program. The first one I'll talk about is working with point clouds. This is another process that they're continuing to make better and to improve as we work with these point clouds. So if we have a point cloud file that we bring in, they're really starting to be treated just like any other AutoCAD drawing, where we can come in there and pick and use snaps to intersections and things like that. We can also pick faces to draw on, so we could pick a face of the sidewall or something like that and start drawing off that face. It's going to take advantage of the dynamic UCS now, so we don't have to physically go in there and change our UCS to work on a particular face. It's going to recognize that face and start switch our UCS to that face as we pick on it. So again, it's just going to improve the ability of working with these cloud files that we bring in. It wasn't too long ago, just a couple of years ago, that these point clouds look like just a bunch of dots. But now the point cloud technology is really improving as far as the instruments they're using to make the clouds. And it's really looking like a solid model when they come in there. It's still just a bunch of dots, but you can see by the picture there that it's really the performance of these and the image, the realistic image of it is really getting better as we move through the technology stage of this. Coordination models. For those working with programs such as Navisworks, we've always been able to take our AutoCAD files out to the Navisworks environment, but now we can go backwards. We can bring the Navisworks model back into our AutoCAD files. And this is huge because if you've got somebody out there working in another program outside of AutoCAD, that's one of the key benefits of Navisworks is that you can bring in all these different file types. It doesn't matter if it's an AutoCAD file or if it's a Bentley file or if it's a CADWorks file or whatever it is. Navisworks can bring in those models and we can build that unified model in there. Well, now we can export and take those models back into the AutoCAD environment so we can start seeing if we have clashes or problems inside of our model before we go out to Navisworks. And so it's going to allow the designer, the end user, to see those clashes inside of your own drawing before we go out to the clash test to find those clashes. So again, it's going to improve the way we work, and improve the way that we work with other team members and how we coordinate our models in the future. Some additional design enhancements, the section object, the render engine in the BIM 360 add-in. The section object is a new way that we can start slicing our models. We could always turn on the section plane and start slicing it either in a vertical plane or horizontal plane. But now we've got a slice tool in there that we can create a little slice of the section in there, and it will create that section slice in there that we just see a little sliver in there. We can take that section and then turn it into just vector lines if we want to, as far. So we can really do a lot now with these section planes and start using these sections to create other drawings and detailed drawings from these sections. As far as the rendered engine, it's got a brand new render engine in it. As far as creating renderings, it's pretty crisp. It's a little bit faster, I believe, as far as creating the renderings. But as you create renderings in it now, it will create a rendering library as you do this, and so you can go back and improve the rendering and do it again or change some settings. And it's going to kind of keep a history of your renderings as you create them, so you can see the history there of how it was changed and pick the one that you like the best, I guess. The other thing is the BIM 360 add-in. Similar to being able to bring in the glue model, the Navisworks model, we can now bring in the glue model. So glue is another product out there by Autodesk that will allow us to do online instant collaboration to find collisions and things like that. Just like we can bring in the Navisworks model, we can now bring in these glue models. And the benefit of this is if you're working with a team and they're posting their models out to the glue site, and you have that linked into your file, every time you open up your file, it's going to go online to see if there's a newer file out there, and always bring in the latest and greatest file so you can always see your consultant's model as far as the latest and greatest that they have out there on the internet. So again, just tying people together, allowing us to work better as a team and be able to collaborate, I guess, better as a team as well. So if we kind of look at this as far as comparing some of this, this is kind of comparing the last 3 releases as far as some of the new features that they've got in there. So again, it's just a list of some of the things that I talked about in there. There's a whole lot more little things in there, but this is the main big things that I saw that was caught my eye as far as the things that I thought were pretty cool. But anyway, you see the list there as far as the new things that they've added this year. In addition to that, I did want to mention this beyond the desktop. As we move into this internet age that we're in, this cloud technology that's out there, I think everything is kind of moving toward this cloud environment where we're posting things out on the internet. AutoCAD can go out there too, so don't forget about some of these apps that are out there. First of all, there's AutoCAD 360 mobile app that will be able to install on your Android or your iPad devices, your tablets, and you can take your AutoCAD files with you. So this is basically AutoCAD on your iPad is what it is. But anyway, you can open up files, you can modify files, you can reference them or whatever you want to out in the field. You can have access to that. Also, the Autodesk Exchange apps. This is a whole environment that Autodesk has built out there for developers to post, I guess, third-party programs that work inside of AutoCAD. So inside the AutoCAD session, you have up on the top right by your help button, you have an X-looking button that looks like an X. You can pick on that, and they'll take you to the Exchange website, and you can browse around and find additional programs or additional apps that the developers have written to use inside of AutoCAD. Now, some of these are free, but some of them are expensive, and so you just kind of, some of them have trial versions and things like that. It's just a different way of getting software and developer software to you as far as going to this exchange location. And the last one, Autodesk A360, this is basically storage in the cloud. So if you want to post your files out there to share your files, if you don't have an FTP site or something like that, this is a great way of doing it, to be able to share your documents with other people on your team that you need to collaborate with. So you're able to put things out in the cloud and invite people to your A360 site, and they can download them, but it keeps track of who's accessed what, so you know when they downloaded it and things like that. So it's going to kind of track all that out there, so you know for sure exactly when they've got it and when they started looking at it. So that kind of does it for AutoCAD. Let me just ask. I'll tell you what. I am going to jump over and just show you a couple things as far as those two couple tools that I talked about. But as I do this, if you have any questions, feel free to type in the chat box and ask your questions. So let me just show you this, and then we'll pause for questions first. So I've got just some objects here, and I just wanted to show you first of all, if I start the polyline command up here, and I want to use that new snap that I was talking about, the geometric center snap, I could just pick it off the list here. I could set it as my running OSnap 2, but here it is, the geometric center, and I can go to this rectangle now and just pick, and it's going to draw me a line right off the center of that rectangle. So I don't have to track or anything like that, or draw some construction lines or anything. I just basically come in there and again right click and pick geometric center. Even on this odd shape one here, I can do it as well. Let me start the polyline command again, and I'll pick it. And I'm just going to hover over one of the lines there, and it finds the center of that shape in there. So again, I think it's going to improve and speed up the process of drawing things in there. As far as the dimensioning, my new dimension tool, if I start the dimension command, I don't have to go down here and pick multiple points. I just come down here and pick on one of my lines. And as you can see, let me kind of zoom up on this. I'm not going to pick. I'm just going to roll my mouse over it. And as soon as I roll over it, you can see the dimension. So that's kind of like a temporary dimension. If I want to make that temporary dimension stay, I just pick on the line and then place my dimension. So in 2 clicks, I've got a dimension of that line in there. So it's really fast and quick and easy. Now I can go around and pick on these dimensions and just quickly go around and dimension it without having to pick start points and end points. So that's pretty nice and pretty cool that we can dimension that quickly. So again, let me kind of pause for questions to see if anybody's got any questions. And Fiona, do we have any questions at this point?
Yeah, Mike, I've got one question, and I think it revolves around what you said with Navisworks. The question is, what file format do you import into AutoCAD? The question is, does it read the NWD?
That's a great question. And honestly, I do not exactly know 100%. I'm going to take a guess at it, though. I think it makes a DWF as far as when it brings it in. I'm going to guess is the AutoCAD DWF format. I am not 100% sure, though. I haven't actually tested that to see what type of file it is. I brought one in, but I didn't see what kind of file it was. But that's a great question. I think it's I know it's a file that you can snap to and measure and things like that, so you can use it as a base file if you need to, but I think it's a DWF.
Okay, so I'll make a note that we'll look at it a little further and find a way to get that answer, back to people. Another question is, do the new PDF features in AutoCAD 2016 make Bluebeam software? Are they sort of comparable to what Bluebeam does? I don't know if you're familiar with that or not.
Yeah, I guess I am. I think Bluebeam still has its place and set of tools that you can use it for. But it's again, as far as making the PDF, AutoCAD's improving that technology as far as doing things. Some of the things that Bluebeam's doing, Bluebeam is pretty powerful in that you can search the documents like AutoCAD now. You can search through and find text. So I don't know if it totally replaces it. It is starting to replace some of the features of Bluebeam, but I still think there's some tools out there that Bluebeam has that AutoCAD does not.
Okay. And when you get to the Revit section, if you would show some of the intelligence in the PDF, I saw some of that at the AIA convention. So when we get to the Revit, here's a couple of more questions. One question is, the question says, are the new dimensions AEC? To me, your dimension line is with arrows, but it says, are the new dimensions AEC?
Yeah, I think what the question is referred to in AutoCAD architecture, there is a dimension type that you can use that's an AutoCAD architecture dimension that will dimension walls and windows and things like that. No, these are plain Jane AutoCAD dimensions. They're not the AEC dimensions.
Okay. Another question. The questions are rolling in quickly. Has there been an improvement in the PDF file size?
Yes, that's one of the improvements that they've made to the PDFs is that the file size is a whole lot smaller. And you also have different options now as far as making a PDF. You have, I think it comes with 3 different plot settings out of the box that you can customize and choose from as far as the different size of the PDFs as far as the pixel of the PDF. But yeah, it's quite a bit faster and it's also more crisper.
Okay. Here is another question from somebody previously. It says sometimes there's a problem where AEC unhosts itself and becomes a box. So I guess the question is, do you have any comments on that?
I'm guessing he's referring to dimensions, back to dimensions.
Could be, yes, same person.
So do they get unhosted in there? Let me just switch back to AutoCAD. I don't, as far as if I pick on this dimension here and try to move it, you know, it will move. They're not hosted to it, and so you can move the dimensions off the object. So yes, they're just dimensioning the points, but the initial points that they're dimensioning to are to the lines. So
Okay.
yes, you do need to be careful of that.
All right. This question is, we're a structural design firm. Are there any changes or improvements in relation to interacting with Revit? I know you're going to do a Revit section. And he says we receive Revit models all the time from architects. So I think you'll probably address that when you get to the Revit part of this presentation.
Yeah, I mean, just real quickly, there's not really any improvements as far as working with Revit files directly that I know of. They have improved inside of Revit working with IFC file format, and IFC file format is a file that you can save your structural model as an IFC and bring it into Revit. So they've improved that aspect of it, but as far as working native with Revit files, no, I don't know of any changes there.
Okay. Yeah, and I see the second part of this gentleman's question is that he still receives Revit models from architects, and yet they develop structural set of DWGs.
Okay. Yeah.
So
yeah, they're still going to have to. You're going to either have to open up Revit or have them open up Revit and save it as a DWG to give you that DWG file format that you can use inside of AutoCAD.
Okay. Are the new PDF options available in the sheet set publish?
It is. Yes, it is.
Okay. And do you think that, I'm going to read one question, then somebody else has an answer. Do you think the Navis file or you import it to the AutoCAD?
Inside of Navis, you can bring it out of Navis and bring it straight into AutoCAD. If you don't have Navis, somebody can do that for you. If they have Navis, they can export it out and send it to you. But if you do have Navis, you can pull it straight from the Navis file from within Navisworks, or you can use it like a reference. You can go out and reference in. And I just answered my question. This is the question that somebody asked a while ago. As far as bringing that Navisworks file in, it's like an X reference. And so you're going to start a reference command and bring it in and attach it. And you can attach an NWC or an NWD file, which are Navisworks files. So you can bring those in directly as a Navisworks file. And so I'm looking at my my list here of new features, and I can see that now. I didn't have this open.
And I see one of our listeners responded. He said he just checked, and it looks like you can import either NWD or NWC files.
Correct. And so that confirms what I was just saying. Yeah.
Okay. That covers the end of my questions. So for those people who joined a little bit late, Mike is now going to go into talking about the new features in Revit. So at the end of that, we know it'll prompt Revit questions, but Mike can entertain any questions. So if you would, Mike, begin on the Revit section.
Okay. Okay. So what's new in Revit? There are basically, I guess, three different sections we could talk about as far as what's new. For the sake of time, I'm not going to have time to talk about everything. I'm going to focus primarily on what's new inside of Revit as far as working with all disciplines. There are specific things in there for architecture, specific things for structural, and specific things for MEP. I'll touch on those, at least mention some of them, but as far as going into detail, I'm going to kind of focus on what's new for all disciplines in there. So let's kind of get started in here. As far as just a list of some of the new features, here's an overall list of the main ones. So you can see that the first column over there on the left is talking about platform enhancements, and so those are the tools that I'm going to kind of focus on today. But as far as structural engineering enhancements, they've really done a lot with the rebar and how rebar works in the model, giving us improvements as far as scheduling rebar and placing rebar. A lot of stuff there that they've really focused on. As far as MEP, the biggest thing inside of MEP is the ability to bring in fabrication content. There's a program called CAD MEP that you can create CAD drawings with as far as using fabricated parts, as far as ductwork and pipes and fittings. And we can now bring in those fabrication models right into Revit. Revit will recognize the MAJ file that the CAD MEP program makes. So we can import that in, but also we have inside of Revit MEP the tools, the fabrication tools to actually draw the fabricated parts. And so it comes with a library of fabricated parts in there that we can use. And so we really now have two sets of tools. We have the Revit MEP tools, but we now have the fabrication tools in there as well. And I think the biggest thing that I'm excited about as far as the fabrication tools is the fact that we have hangers in there now. So we can create, it comes with some hangers as far as trapeze hangers or pipe hangers, and we can use those to place them on our pipes and place them on our cable trays or whatever we wanted to place them on, but that's kind of built into the program now. So a lot there as far as working with those fabrication tools and bringing those tools inside of Revit. As far as the platform enhancements, let's kind of take a look at some of those. The first one I'll talk about, and some of these are pretty minor, but they made my list as far as things that I thought were great, and finally they kind of fixed some things in my mind. But the first one is just a simple one, the ability to change the background color. We've always been able to change the background color of our screen from either white or black. We could have a black screen or a white screen, but we couldn't make it a green screen or a yellow screen or anything like that. Not that you might like that, but I've changed mine, and I really have started liking it a lot. So now we can pick any color we want to. I've made mine kind of a pale yellow color, and it really kind of makes things, as far as the contrast of the lines and stuff, really kind of pops it out so I can see it better. And it's not the bright starch white that is there. It's kind of a muted yellow color. So it's pretty nice to be able to change the background color there. The next one that I've got in here is to be able to pan around and zoom around. They've really increased the speed of this. If you're working on a large model, I'm sure you've experienced trying to pan or move or zoom and having to set to wait for the model to regenerate. Now they've got this real-time navigation support in there that you can turn on, and it's going to pan real smooth. It's not going, you're not going to pan and wait for it to regen. It drastically it speeds up the process of panning and zooming and orbiting as you're working in the model there. In addition to that, we've got this is another little bitty thing, but it's just something that always bugged me. We've had the abilities in the past to change our drawings so we see thin lines as opposed to thick lines. So we had that thin line setting tool. And it was nice. I typically set mine to thin lines so I can see the individual lines on my screen. But if I exited the program and went back into Revit, those thick lines would be back on. So I'd have to go back and change the thin line setting again. Now it finally remembers, if I change it to thin lines, it's going to remember that it's set to thin lines, and it's going to always be set to thin lines until I change it back. So anyways, that's nice. It's going to remember that. Similar to that, it's also going to remember my zoom location. In previous releases, if I zoom into around a corner of a building like this and I close the program and reopen the same file, it's going to come back up and it's going to zoom extents. So this time it's going to remember that I was zoomed in around the corner of the building when I reopen the project. Now, if you've got a startup view, a lot of people are doing this to have a specific view that the model starts in, then that's going to override this. It will always go to the startup view if you've got one set. But if you don't have a startup view, it's going to go back to whatever zoom you were at when you exited the model last time. Searchable property type drop-downs and just drop-down lists in general. As we have these drop-down lists to choose things like our wall type or something like that in our properties palette, you know, that list can get very long and we have a lot of walls in there. So just having ability to search in there. The image on the right shows me typing in the letters MTL for metal, and it's finding all the wall types that are in my wall list there that has the word MTL in the name of the wall type there. So ability to search down and drill down and find your stuff. This comes also if we have any kind of drop down list. The other image is showing me searching for the letters A4 in a view drop down where I'm trying to associate a section with a different view in there. I can see all my A4 sections in there that I've got already created in there. So again, just being able to search through our list, our drop downs that we have there. This is something that bugs me, and this may not be a big deal for you, but it's really not a advertised new feature, but it's really, they fixed it. So if you, and what this is talking about, in the properties palette, if you start scrolling down on using the bar on the right side of the properties palette and scrolling down to the bottom half of the properties, if you accidentally, in previous releases, if you accidentally removed your mouse off the bar, the bar would go all the way back up to the top, and then you'd have to go back and re-scroll it back down. And I was always finding myself constantly dragging that bar back down because I would roll off of it, and it would jump back to the top. Now they fixed it. So now if I start rolling down and pulling that bar down to see the bottom half of the properties, and I move my mouse on it, it stays exactly where you're at. It doesn't jump back up to the top like it's done in previous releases. We've got a whole new button. This is at the bottom of our screen, down where we set the scale and set the detail levels and things like that. We've got a new button down there called Reveal Constraints, and what this will do is it will turn on all of our constraints in the model and show us where they are and highlight them in red. And so it's, we can toggle this on or off, and so when it's on, you can see the image there. It's showing some 5-foot dimensions in there. Those 5-foot dimensions are locked dimensions that I've got in my drawing, so now we can see where our constraints are and which ones are locked and which ones are not locked, just by turning on this Reveal Constraints, and then we can toggle it back off and they all go away. But it's just a great way to see what's been constrained and what's not been constrained. Another one, as far as, this one's kind of hard to explain, so I got a couple of pictures here to try to explain it, but they've improved the way that we can highlight hosted elements. So let me just kind of walk through this sequence of slides here. The first one, I've got some doors down here, and those doors have door numbers. If I pick those door numbers, the door numbers are of course associated with the door, but visually I don't know that. I can't tell that those numbers are associated with the door, other than just knowing that I put them in there and attached the tag to the door. But now we can pick on those door numbers and go up to the top and pick on the select host. And when we pick on select host at the top, it's going to come back and it's going to highlight the doors down there to show us exactly which doors those tags are hosted to. This is also going to work with other hosted items. So if you want to see what the item is hosted to, you can just pick on it and go up and say select host, and then it will highlight what it's hosted to. But in addition to that, we can also, now that we've got those doors selected using the select host, we can also go up and say pick new host. And this is pretty nice too, because if we want to move those doors in previous releases, it would move them, but it would lose the properties of the doors and basically assign us a new door number if we picked on new host. Now it's going to remember the door numbers and not lose it all. And so if I pick rehost them and pick on another wall to place them on, it's going to keep all the properties, everything about the door exactly the same, and just move those doors over there. So it's going to keep the same numbers of the door there. So again, it's not a major thing, but just kind of improves the ability and gives us some ability to kind of move things around without losing information in there, without losing the properties of it. This is a huge one. This next one, place rooms automatically. This has been on the wish list for I don't know how long. But this has been available for MEP engineers when they place spaces. They could always do this place automatically, but it hasn't been in here for rooms. So if you've got a building that's got 1,000 rooms, in prior releases we'd have to place a room in each one of those spaces individually. You go around and pick 1,000 times. Now we've got a button up there that says automatically place rooms automatically, and with a click of a button, the example there is showing that it placed 32 rooms automatically. So it's going to drastically speed up the process of putting rooms in there. Just one word of caution about this that I've seen is if you have little nooks or little bump outs or little chases in your building, in your model there, Revit's going to see those little spaces as a space, and it's going to try to put rooms in those little bump outs or cavities or chases that you may have there. So it's not a big deal, but just know that it's going to do that. You can go back and erase them and delete them, but initially it's going to see every little opening and try to put a room in there. Working with Project North. This will now change the way it works when we change and rotate Project North around. So if we do it, have a site plan that we want to show the true north location of this and rotate it based off Project North, we can do that. But now I guess the annotation objects will be rotated with it. Whereas before, the annotation objects tried to keep them flat and not rotate those. Now everything will rotate with the model, so everything stays at the same angle in there, and it's going to preserve that position in there a little bit better. So again, just being able to rotate things and create things quicker and faster in there. We have a new option if we go to our project browser and we have a view in our project browser. If we right-click on the view, we have a new option called Open Sheet. It's at the top of the right-click menu. So if this view is actually on a sheet, we can just do this and right-click on it, and will take us directly to the sheet that this view's on. If the view's not on a sheet, that open sheet will be grayed out. So that's one way of seeing if views are on sheets or if they're not on sheets, is just by right-clicking. You can see it, but this is also going to jump you right to the sheet, so you don't have to go down and figure out which sheet it's on. It's going to take you there just by right-clicking on the view name. Revision enhancements. They've changed and added some additional features as far as using the revision tools. A couple of things. Now we can, first of all, we can select multiple divisions to delete. Last year they gave us the new tool to be able to delete revisions, but we had to do it one at a time. Now we can hold our Shift key down and highlight multiple revisions at once and delete them, multiple times at one, instead of just doing one at a time. They do have to be unissued, so if they are checked as far as issued, it won't let you delete them, but you can come in here and uncheck the checkbox and then delete them if you need to. They've also changed the numbering system in here to allow us to have prefixes and suffixes to our numbering system. For example, if you want to add the letters REV as a prefix to your revision number, you can now. So it gives you the ability to add that prefix or suffix. You can also do custom sequences as far as your numbering system in there. So now you don't have to do 1, 2, 3 or ABC. You could do, a sequence in there like B1, revision B2, revision B3, or whatever. You can have a sequence in there of letters or a combination of letters and numbers to number it and name your revisions. Ability to perform editing tools in a perspective view. If you do create a true perspective view using the camera command, in previous releases we were pretty much limited. We couldn't do anything. We could view the perspective, but that's about it. We couldn't make any kind of modifications in the perspective. We would have to go back to a normal 3D view that's not a perspective to make changes to it. But now not all of them are there, but some of the tools now are available inside of a perspective view. You can see on this screen that I've got the align command that's available, or the move command, or the delete, or the pin or unpin. Again, that's not major, but they're starting to give us some tools that we can work in this perspective view without having to go back to a normal 3D view to make changes in there. All right, this is my favorite command. I'm going to show you this and show you how this works, but this is awesome. This command here. If you're wanting to see something in 3D, before we would have to create a 3D view, and then we could turn on what's called the section box and start sectioning that 3D down and just showing a little part of the model instead of showing the entire model. Now we've got this selection box that we can instantly create a 3D view. So the example here is a stair, and so what I would do is just go down into this model and pick on the stair and then tell it that we want to see a 3D view, and it pops open in the 3D view cropped down just around the stair. And so with 2 clicks I can see that stair in 3D and nothing else around it. So I'm going to show you how this works, but it's really nice and it's really quick to be able to see our objects in a 3D view. It's almost like having an object viewer that we can pick on something and see it in 3D, but this is going to create a live 3D view that's cropped down of what we have selected there. They've improved the rendering inside of Revit. They've actually added another rendering engine that we have in here. So now we have the option of either rendering using an NVIDIA mental ray engine or the Autodesk ray tracer engine. So we do have the option now inside of our rendering dialog box. We can pick and choose which option we want to render it as. You know, both of them have different key things that I like one better than the other, but now we have some options there and there to create different renderings, different photorealistic renderings from our models there. So again, adding to it and also making, I think they're both a little faster as well. And I think they're a little crisper as well. So again, improving that technology as far as creating those renderings. They've added a couple of new parameters that we can use. This is more, I guess, architectural related, but I wanted to talk about it. They've added some parameters in there for floors. So in previous years, if we created a floor and wanted to schedule the floor, we could, but we really couldn't call out some key information as far as calling out in the schedule things like what is the elevation at the top of the floor, or what's the elevation at the top of the core. Now we can do that. Now we've got parameters that's built into the floor that we can use to start calling out these in our elevations, or we could create tags to call these out either way. But now we can call out the top of core, the bottom, and the bottom of core. The only stipulation for this is that we have to have a floor that's a structural floor, and all that means is if you create a floor over in the properties, there's a checkbox that you can check to tell it that that's a structural floor, and as long as it's a structural floor, then we can use these new parameters. If it's not a structural floor, these new parameters won't be there, but it's nice that we can now create a schedule that includes that. As far as IFC links, I mentioned this a while ago, they've improved IFC links. And again, this is a file type that we can use to bring into Revit. So if somebody's not using Revit, we can create an IFC file and bring that IFC file directly into Revit. They're constantly, every year they've improved the way IFC works inside of Revit. This year what they've done is made the IFC links room bounding elements. Prior releases, if we brought in a model from an IFC, if we try to put a room in there, it would not see the walls as a room bounding element and would not allow us to put rooms in there. We would have to draw room boundary lines in there. Now it's going to natively recognize these walls as a room bounding element that we can use to place our rooms in automatically. Being able to create an energy model. We've had this in the past that we could create some energy models and take it out to the online world out there to run some whole building energy analysis to see how much energy our building's going to be using, what's the carbon footprint, things like that we could do in the past. Now when we start this process, it's going to create a couple of new views for us, and so it's going to create essentially 3 views. It's going to create a 3D energy model view, which is a 3D view. Then it's going to create 2 schedules, one's for the analytical spaces and the analytical surfaces. This is going to allow us to see exactly what it's exporting out to be analyzed. And so you can see the image on the right there shows almost like a ghosted image of my building, but that's trying to show all my surfaces, all my openings in the model that's going to be used in the calculations of the energy model. So now we have the ability to see what we're trying to analyze, whereas before we would export it out and just hope for the best that we had everything in there, that it was doing it right. Now we can inspect it and actually see, you know, what are the spaces, what are the surfaces that it's analyzing to make sure that it's doing what we think it's doing. This is really, this last one here, this is really not a new Revit tool, but I think it's something we need to talk about and something we need to know about. It's called A360 Collaboration for Revit. This is a new service that Autodesk is offering to us out there. It's basically collaborating in the cloud. And what I mean by that is if you're used to using a work shared model in your own office where you have multiple people working on the same model at one time and you enable work sharing, you create a central file and then everybody's working on their local files. You know, that's been there in the past. They introduced Revit Server several years ago. They introduced Revit Server, which allows us to kind of link people up that are not in the same building. But with Revit Server, you do have to have some hardware installed. You have to have basically a pipeline to connect the two offices together so that they can share the model back and forth using Revit Server. With Autodesk A360 Collaboration for Revit, there's no IT setup at all. Basically, you turn it on and you save your file out to the cloud, and then you open up the model off the cloud, and it's going to download a cached copy of the model and allow you to work and save to the cloud. It's really quick. It's really fast. You know, I guess the initial time is going to have to upload the file to the cloud, but once it's up there, it's just from that point on, it's just downloading cached copies. So just whatever's changed since the last time it downloaded it. So that increases the speed quite a bit. But this allows you to have a model out there in the cloud that multiple people from multiple locations can be working on at the same time. In the cloud out there. It also gives us on the right, you see a picture of a communication panel that will allow us to have I guess a chat session with our team members that are working on the project. We'll be able to chat back and forth through the internet to our colleagues and to our consultants that are out there working on it. So that kind of does it for the new features. I do want to jump over to Revit just to show you at least one thing. So let me jump over and show you. First of all, you can see my yellow background, being able to change the background to a specific yellow color. I think it's kind of nice on the eyes there. But as far as working, I want to show you that sectioning tool, that 3D tool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom up around here, and this is a medical office building, but I'm going to zoom up around this triage room, and I want to see what this looks like in 3D. So like I said, I could create a 3D view and then kind of crop it down, kind of see it all, but I'm just going to come in here and just draw me a selection box. Oops, not move it. That should be locked, so I can't move it, but it's not. I didn't mean to pick on that. Let me just undo that. Try that again. I'm just going to pick me a selection box in here, and I just did it again. What am I picking on up there? I'm picking on something. Let me start it down here. Here's a trick. If you keep picking things like this, if you hold your shift key down and then start your pick, it's not going to pick it, and then you can let go and pick everything. So I'm just going to draw me a box around this. And with it all selected, here's my new tool. It's up here under this view section of the modify ribbon. It's just called selection box, and I can just push on that. It's going to jump me over to a 3D view, and this 3D view is going to be cropped down and sectioned just to show the triage room that we were looking at. So here it is. So it's cropped it down. Now initially it's got the walls kind of transparent. That's because they are selected. If I let go of these, I can. It's going to make it solid in there again, so I can't see through them. But I could pick on these walls and either hide them or do whatever I want to. But basically it sections down just to show. If I can pick on this little wall, and I can come down here and hide it using my hide down here and hide element. And now I can see just inside that triage room. So it's a real quick, easy way to create a 3D view to see what's going on inside of our models. Let me show you one more example. I'm going to go back to my floor plan and basically grab a stair and show you how I can grab a stair and create a 3D view of the stairway. So let me pan down a little bit and just work on this stair right here in the middle of my building. So I'm going to pick the stair in there, and I'm also, yeah, that's good enough. Just pick the stair and go up and tell it to create this. And again, it's going to jump over and create the 3D view in there, and basically now we can just see the stair in there. So real quick, real easy, real fast as far as creating that 3D view. It is a 3D view. It just changed. I think it's just my default 3D view is what it's set to. So just modified that, but I could rename this to whatever I want to keep this as far as stair 3D view of the stair or whatever I want to call it. But it's just real quick to be able to do that. One other thing I wanted to show you as far as the background color, and I guess you can kind of look at this as something that's nice, or maybe it's a pain to you either way. But let me just kind of show you, since I did change my background color to this pale yellow color, if I go to an elevation, I think I've got a south elevation or something down here I can go to. If I go to a south elevation a couple of years ago, they allowed our elevations to have background colors, to put a sky in the background. So this one has this nice sky background. And last year they introduced the ability to have sketchy lines, and so this one I've turned on sketchy lines. But down here, what I'm looking at is an elevation that's just set to be hidden line type. It's not colored or anything like that, but the default color of this hidden line type is now my background elevation, which is that pale yellow in there. So it's almost looking like a almost a museum board look as far as this elevation. And this is nothing more than, like I said, I have three things on. I've set it to hidden line, I put a sky background, and I've turned sketchy lines on in here, and it's a real nice looking elevation as far as what it produces in there. But I just wanted to show you the default color of hidden line is now the background color. So if my background color was green, my model would be green. So again, you can kind of look at that as a good thing or a bad thing, but that is how it works in there as far as using that background color. So with that, I'll jump it over back to you, Fiona, and see if we've got any questions out there. Let me try to find my PowerPoint. There it is.
Yeah, I think
Fiona,
one just came in. It's rather a long question, but I will ask you, in a PDF made from Revit, and I'm calling it a smart PDF. Do you have anything that you can show in that, or you can explain it? Do you know what I'm referring to?
I have not looked at that, Fiona. So no.
Oh, well, then I'll just say it verbally, because we were showing it to clients at the AIA convention. If I have a floor plan that's a PDF generated from Revit and it's got section cuts and blow up details, when you touch those detail or section markers, it jumps you to that sheet with that detail. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's really cool. So it jumps you way onto that detail or the section, and that's part of the PDF when it's exported from the Revit using the 2016.
Okay, cool.
I'm going to read one question that's short because there's another one that's quite long. This shorter one, what are the additional costs for A360 with a premium design suite? Well, that actually fits me. A360, which is part of subscription. So that was what you explained earlier on, where people can use it to share files and store files, and that's 25 gigs of storage. So that's part of your subscription. You mentioned A360 collaboration for Revit. Didn't you touch on that, Mike?
I did.
Yeah. So the A360 collaboration for Revit is $800 per user per year. And people are setting it up based on how many people are working on a project, and that enables you to have the model hosted in the cloud, communication and a dashboard all around the project. It's really interesting. I think we did a webinar on that before, but if anybody's interested in hosting their Revit model in the cloud and doing it that way, we can definitely follow up with them. They can send us an email. Here's a question. I was under the impression that the export to fabrication is one directional from Revit to CAD MEP. And you said that now we can import models created in CAD duct to Revit.
That's correct.
Format?
That's correct.
And can you manipulate the ducts as native Revit, or is it similar to linking a DWG?
Okay. No, it will bring in the image, the match file straight from CAD MEP, so there's no save as or anything like that. You can just bring it straight into Revit. And yes, you can manipulate it inside of Revit. So now we have the tools in there to draw or place new components or whatever, or swap components out. But yeah, we have the complete library in there of set of tools that we can use inside of Revit now.
Okay. Here's a scenario. It's from a client, and I'm going to read it. It says, I believe they're a structural engineer. We currently have Revit and are not using it to create our structural set of drawings. We still produce DWG sets. We would like to take a non-structural Revit design model, which is from an architect, and quickly turn it into a structural model within it, sort of the Navisworks idea. Any thoughts on software that will allow us to bring it into Revit, a structural model, and merge it with the architectural model? In short, we are looking for the most effective way of producing a Revit 3D structural model based on Revit models that are not necessarily structural in nature. I'm sure you can follow all of that, and we can answer this person separately, but
yeah. Yeah, we might take that one offline. I'm not sure if I 100% follow. It sounds like they're trying to bring it into AutoCAD and use AutoCAD and then bring it back into Revit.
I'm
And
thinking
once,
they're getting Revit models from the architect, and architects are not structural engineers, and I think that's what they're looking for. But we'll talk to this person separately.
okay,
Let me look on our list. There were a couple of questions to do with the fabrication and the Revit
okay.
CAD MEP. Do you feel like you've covered that pretty well?
Well, yeah, I guess I could jump over and show you. Let me just, I'll tell you what, I'm in this hospital drawing. Let me just start a new drawing from scratch in here, and I'm just going to use the out-of-the-box, I'll just use the out-of-the-box MEP template, I guess, is what I'll use in here. So when I open this new project up, as far as the new tools, I think I can show you this pretty quickly. Come on. Okay, so if I go to my System tab up here at the top, we've got a new tool in here called Fabrication Part. So if I open up the Fabrication Part, it's going to put this dialog box over here on the right. And like I said, right now it's not seeing the library. I think I lost it when I reinstalled it. But anyway, I can point this to use the out-of-the-box. This is nothing I bought, but this is just out of the box. I'm just going to add all these components that make them available in my drawing. And now that they're available over here in my palette, I can pick and choose what we want to use. So if I want to draw a piece of ductwork or a cable tray or whatever we want to use, I can use them all. So let me let this get loaded real quick. Maybe I should have just done one or two of them because it's loading all those parts into my model. Come on. It should be about finished. If it will hurry up. Nothing's ever fast when you're waiting for it. Yeah, this is a lot of content that I'm loading right there. I should have just picked a one or two, and it would have been faster. This is loading all the parts and pieces into this model, so it's taking a second to load everything in there. But I wanted to show you all of it. Okay, I think it's about done. So what we have up here at the top, we're going to have a couple drop downs, and I can pick what I'm trying to draw, whether it's HVAC or electrical or pipes or anything like that. I can pick and choose up here at the top what we're trying to draw. If I want to draw a straight piece of ductwork, I can just start the command and just put me a straight piece of ductwork in there. And these are segmented, and I can change the library and make these any lengths I want to. So I'm just basically putting these together. If I want to put an elbow in there, I can just snap to the elbow and put it, change it to the elbow and put the elbow in there. Let me kind of rotate that around. There we go. Just hit your space bar to rotate, and then we go back to a straight piece and put that in there. So again, the tools are there as far as drawing the fabrication parts. If I go to a 3D view and show you this, there's the ductwork that I put in there. And what I'm excited about are the hangers. So if I come down here and change this to show you the hanger part that we have in here, we got different types of trapeze hangers or wire hangers or different things like that. But I can come in here and just put trapeze hangers and just kind of snap and place these onto that piece of ductwork, and it's placing the hangers in there exactly where they need to go. So that's a little bit of the MEP fabrication tools.
Okay, that was great. One person asked a question which is really good. I don't think we'll go into a lot of detail, Mike, because of time, but they asked about from Excel to Revit. Moving data from Excel to Revit, and I just wanted to mention for the whole audience that that is something we do work with people, particularly architects with programming. There may be other needs, but if anybody is interested in that, just send us a separate note and we'll get back to you, one-on-one. Here's one other question, and we are past our time, but it's a good question. What workflow and add-in would you recommend for unifying all 5,000 of our Revit family parameter names? Question mark.
To unify all 5,000 Revit family parameter.
For unifying all 5,000 of our Revit family parameter names.
Well, first of all, I would recommend using shared parameters. So if you're not using shared parameters, you need to be using shared parameters. That way it's coming from one source, all the parameters in there. So other than using a shared parameter file, I don't know of any third-party application out there to help you manage those parameter names. A shared parameter file is just a text file, so you can bring that text file into other programs like Word or just Notepad or something like that, or Excel, and you can kind of use those programs to help you organize that text file. But yeah, I guess that's all I know of. There may be some out there on this Exchange website. Up here in the top, there's a big X. You can go to this Exchange app, see if there's any custom ones out there. Personally, I haven't played with any. I haven't used any.
Okay. Well, I think that's the end of our questions. We've definitely gone over our time. We've got a few people here. Before we sign out, Mike, I've got a little bit of information about upcoming events. I don't know if you had any slides, but I'll just mention briefly. Let me look at the webinars for those who are listening in. On May 26th, the next webinar is called Get Connected. Learn how to leverage the benefits of applied software and Autodesk. On May 28th, Autodesk Design Technology in Higher Education Institutions. So that's for the education clients. And then on June 2nd, Panzura, the Cloud Made Seamless. I'm not sure how many people listening are familiar with the name Panzura, but if you are looking at a way of storing data in the cloud, whether it's working on Revit models, AutoCAD, Civil, photographs, job notes, anything at all, Panzura is a solution that will enable that very securely, cost-effectively, and it's really pretty neat. So that's June 2nd. So those are our upcoming webinars. Applied Software also does events in person. We've got the AIA Alabama Convention in Birmingham on June 13th. We have a product show there. We have a first look event, which is like a live, like a lunch meeting. It's going from 4:30 to 6:30 on June 16th in Jacksonville, Florida. That is covering architecture and architecture, engineering, and manufacturing. And then we have a first look event in Savannah, Georgia on June 17th. We had a first look event in Montgomery, Alabama a few weeks back. So anybody listening in, if there's something you want in your area, you've got a group of people. I'm actually doing a meeting tomorrow in Tupelo, Mississippi. So if you've got a group you would like to meet with, just send us a note. So I thank everybody for joining. We'll post this on Live Lab Learning YouTube. Thank you, Mike. And thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you,
Bye.
guys. Bye-bye.